let's get the show on the road. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Winnetka Village Council regular meeting for June 6th, 2023. I'd like to call the meeting to order, ask everybody to mute your cell phones and other electronic devices. And Rob, can you do a roll call for attendance, please?
Certainly. Trustee Apatow?
Here.
Trustee Handler?
Here.
Trustee Dearborn?
Here.
Trustee Albinson?
Here.
Trustee Dahlman?
Here.
President Rins.
Here. Item 2 is the Pledge of Allegiance. I've asked Trustee Apatow to lead us this evening.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Quorum check.
Yes, thank you. June 13th study session is canceled, so I'm checking June 20th and July 6th.
I will not be here July 6th.
Okay?
I think those work for me.
Work for you?
Yeah,
Okay.
at the moment.
I'm good.
Okay, all good? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. Item 4 tonight is public comment. This is the time of the evening when anybody who wishes to address the village council on any item that is not on the agenda, they're welcome to come up to the podium and share their thoughts with us. Would anybody like to speak tonight? Good evening, Ted.
Hi, Ted Winnichenko. So, I originally was planning on coming today to say that, I was sorry if anything was misconstrued, blah, blah, blah. And I now realize that nothing I've said has been factually incorrect. And clearly, I can't hold this council or the government currently responsible for things that have happened in the past. But I can hold them responsible for the things that they do. And I don't believe that I have ever said anything that is inaccurate or factually wrong. Perhaps my style of address is blunt and not politically correct, but that doesn't make it any less valid. I have always felt that my statements were in the attempting to advance a better village for everyone here, not just for a select few. And I had always believed that that is generally true with those who were elected to serve, both here and at other bodies, regardless of the insinuations that people have made here or elsewhere. But I am now beginning to wonder if that is in fact the case. Specifically, I can't keep up with everything that goes on. But I recently noticed the Bertling sidewalk, and I saw it was closed. And I thought to myself, wow, here's a sidewalk that would decompress students from the too busy streets, Sunset Ridge and Winnetka. We had a child that was struck by a car just a few years ago, grievously injured. And here's something that would decompress them from those major thoroughfares. And by the way, look, it looks like it was put here specifically to do that. And I was confused by the fact that it was closed. And now I have come to learn that it was closed 20 years ago. Private homeowners complained. And then just last year, after 2 secret meetings, and that's what they were, we can argue the legality of them, but I believe that public access counselor opinions are clear that those meetings, which were ostensibly to discuss setting a price, were actually improper. And what happened was that the council came up in November with short notice with a pre-made decision to give up village land to private individuals forever, in perpetuity, at less than its value. The village council and the village decided that they would gift village land forever, free, clear, at less than it was worth, and then said that this is somehow in the public interest. When they could have kept the thing closed like they had, who knows? We are looking at trying to become more pedestrian. Who knows? There may be more traffic, there may be more risk of injury to children, but that is all gone. because just like on the lake shore, where the council and the village are turning a blind eye to private encroachment onto public land, here we had 2 secret meetings, gave up village property, it's done, it's gone, no one can do anything about it. And I'm sorry, you know what? That is not in the best interest of the village. That is in the best interest of a select few, and it is shocking to me that you guys would hold secret meetings to discuss it and then go ahead and do it. And I'm sorry, that is on you, and I'm disappointed. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to address council this evening? Seeing none, I will close public comment and we'll move forward. Item 5 tonight is reports. Trustees, we'll start with Rob.
Yeah, quick something. I've always kind of thought, I've lived here many years, and what makes Winnetka special is the residents, and it's the level of selfless volunteerism to make our community better. Recently, we just had a special Memorial Day, and I just want to note that some of the people that really volunteer their time do this without looking for any type of acclaim. One of those people is Susie Schreiber. For many years, she has worked with the Park District and the village staff to really help plan and execute this important Memorial Day. And it's just a lot of work. She's the keeper of the flags for the community. And year after year, she steps up and does those types of things. So, you know, we see the Cripes on 9/11, and it's what makes this place special. So thanks to Susie and the others who step up in this community.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob. Kim?
Yes, I just wanted to give an update on Saturday at the first opening day of Farmers Market. We had our first trustee table, or community conversation. Rob ended up joining me. It was a delightful day. Kudos to Terry Dason and the Chamber and Rocky Flinterman. It was an amazing opening day. They've really put together a lovely mix of vendors, traditional vendors you'd expect in terms of fresh fruits and vegetables and flowers, but also some really interesting ones that I think are really making it a success. But Rob and I had a really good time talking to a lot of people in the community, and I think we're looking forward to a great season for us all to participate.
Thanks, Kim. I'm just chuckling because
Susie?
Oh, Susie just walked in.
you're late.
Were your ears burning?
Bob,
No report, Chris.
Kurt,
No report.
Tina.
No report.
Okay, village attorney,
No report tonight.
village manager,
No report this evening.
and village president. I have no report. Okay, item 6 is the establishment of the consent agenda. Does any trustee wish to remove any item on the consent agenda for a separate vote? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the final form of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Item 7 is approval of the consent agenda, and I'll ask the village clerk to read the items on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Approval of Village Council minutes for May 9th, 2023 study session. Approval of the warrant list dated May 5th, 2023 through May 18th, 2023 in the amount of $2,971,461.41. Resolution number R58, 2023, approving an intergovernmental agreement with the Winnetka Park District for staffing at Cherry Street Beach. Resolution number R59, 2023, waiving bidding, approving the disposal of a public works vehicle and the purchase of a new public works vehicle from Curry Motors Commercial Center. Resolution number R60, 2023, approving an agreement with Global Infrastructure LLC for the maintenance of the water plant's raw water intake. And resolution number R61, 2023, rejecting bids, waiving bidding requirements, and awarding a contract to WEG Transformers USA LLC for 75 kVA pad mount transformers.
Thanks, Rob. All right, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda by omnibus vote?
So moved.
Second?
Roll call vote.
Trustee Hanlon.
Yes.
Trustee Dahlman.
Yes.
Trustee Apatow.
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn.
Yes.
Trustee Albinson.
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you. Item 8, ordinances and resolutions. 8A is ordinance number M08-2023, granting a special use permit, variations from the Winnetka zoning ordinance, and a certificate of appropriateness for the construction of a new mixed-use building within the C2 General Retail Commercial District, 564 Green Bay Road, and that's up for adoption tonight. This item was introduced during the May 16th council meeting. Tonight, council will consider approving a special use permit, variations, and a certificate of appropriateness for the construction of a new mixed-use building at 564 Green Bay Road. And Community Development Director David Schoen is here to,
answer any questions you may have. You discussed it at your last meeting, so if there's any additional questions.
okay, does anybody have any additional questions for David? No?
Nope.
Okay, is there any public comment on this issue? Okay, seeing none, I'll close public comment and ask council for one last time, any discussions or questions or statements or whatever?
Statement. I would just say that we spent quite a bit of time talking about parking on this one. In general, I'm concerned about parking, the challenges we have in the village. I think they could grow over time, and personally don't like the sort of concept, I guess, of exceptions. But having said that, I think this is a really attractive building. I'm glad they're doing it. I just think we have to be very, very sensitive to parking issues in and about town. And I think the point was made. So, thank you.
Great. Thanks, Bob. Anybody else? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to adopt ordinance number M08-2023.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Albinson?
Yes.
Trustee Dahlman?
Yes.
Trustee Apatow?
Yes.
Trustee Handler?
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn?
Yes.
That motion carries. Item B tonight is ordinance number MC06-2023, amending the Winnetka Village Code concerning the use and licensing of leaf blowers, and this is up for introduction. Village Council held a study session regarding gasoline-powered leaf blowers on April 11th and gave staff direction to proceed with the code amendment. Tonight, council will consider approving a proposed ordinance implementing regulations regarding gasoline-powered leaf blowers with consideration of requests brought forth by the Winnetka Park District. So, Police Chief Brian O'Connell, and we are now officially addressing you as chief, so congratulations and thank you. And I saw Chief flexing his muscles out there with a couple of 12-year-olds, making sure they cleaned up the Moffett Mall before the meeting, so.
I was gonna open this one with any questions like David did. But, I'll go through it again. Thank you, council.
Take it away, Brian.
So before I get started, I'd like to just recognize record specialist Kim Hodge and Administrative Services Manager Carrie Kaup for their help on this and gathering the updated information as of today's date. So here we go. For over 25 years, the Winnetka Village Code has included an ordinance prohibiting the use of gas-powered leaf blowers during certain months of the year. The current code defines gas-powered leaf blowers as a nuisance and prohibits their use from June 1st through September 30th each year, which is a 4-month ban. Current exemptions to the gas-powered leaf blower ban include the golf courses, the Park District properties, and publicly owned property. And currently, the village does not have a licensing process for landscapers. In 2021, a regional leaf blower working group was formed to evaluate the need and impact of leaf blower regulations being considered by participating municipalities. The working group consisted of many entities to include Wilmette, Glencoe, Kenilworth, Highland Park, and Northbrook. This working group identified 3 impact categories that should be considered: environmental factors, technological considerations, and cost. On April 11th of 2023, council gathered for a study session. On that day, council discussed these categories as well as considerations of a 9-month leaf blower ban, licensing, and the current exemptions. Based on village council's recommendation, the village attorney prepared a draft proposed ordinance that would update the gasoline-powered leaf blower regulations as follows. 1, increase the current 4-month restriction to a 9-month restriction of gasoline-powered leaf blowers and any leaf blower powered by an internal combustion engine, which would be prohibited from December to March and May to September. Such leaf blowers would only be allowed during spring and fall cleanup, specifically for the heavy months of April, October, and November. Number 2, to eliminate exemptions for all publicly owned properties. And 3, implement an annual licensing requirement for landscapers. If adopted, the proposed ordinance amendment would be effective beginning in 2024 to allow for education and outreach to both residents and landscaping companies. At the request of Village Council on that April 11th study session, staff began communicating with village partners in an effort to notify them of the proposed ordinance. The Winnetka Park District voiced concerns associated with that proposed ordinance. And I want to respect making sure I get it right here, so if I speak out of turn, please make sure I'm corrected. The Winnetka Park District and Kemper Sports both submitted letters summarizing the issues related to additional regulations and for further consideration by council. The Park District is requesting a phased-in approach over the next 3 years, depending on technological advances, as they transition a portion of their equipment from gas-powered to electric leaf blowers. After that new equipment is phased in, they are requesting 2 additional months of gasoline-powered leaf blower usage, specifically May and September of every year, for all Park District maintained properties, as well as a complete exemption for golf course operations and the Skokie Playfield site. Additionally, Kemper Sports drafted a letter of support in favor of the Winnetka Park District's concerns. Kemper Sports has contracted with, the Winnetka Park District to assist in managing this year's construction phase, as well as all services of the golf course requirements through December of 2027. Just to highlight a few of the municipalities that have updates on their leaf blowers as that were associated with the study. Glencoe approved as presented on April 20th with a 9-month ban, a January 24th start, the village manager authority to extend up to 2 weeks, and they maintain their current exemptions in their code, which include golf courses and publicly owned properties. Wilmette approved as presented on the 25th, 9-month, January 2024, village manager authority. They added language unique to the village hall is not exempt from the rule, and all other current language exemptions remain. Golf courses, public parks, Park District property, and they do have a caveat for their gutters, residential gutters. Northbrook is in full support of the draft ordinance, but is not voting on it. Currently, they claim that will be happening potentially in June with an implementation of 2025 and a 9-month ban. Highland Park wants to wait and see what our partners do. Deerfield, we weren't able to get in contact with them. Lake Bluff did approve on March 13th. Their ban, though, is May 15th through September 30th, so an initial ordinance in regards to this, not a 9-month, effective immediately in this year, with exemptions to their public parks, playgrounds, athletic fields, courses, and construction projects, and necessary cleanup. And Kenilworth has not brought this to the board as of yet. And that's all I have. I'm open for any questions that you may have.
Sure. Before we get into questions, I thought maybe we'd give King a chance to just address council and give his thoughts on the ordinance. Would you like to share with us, King?
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chief, and I'm glad I can address you as Chief now. And I want to thank the council for all the time and effort that you have put into this. This is an important step in improving public health, enjoyment of property and the environment, as we've discussed. And it's consistent with what the working group spent a year looking at and determining that a 9-month ban was a reasonable compromise and that it was one that would allow consistency, which is good for everybody, the landscapers and everyone else who uses lawn equipment will benefit by having a uniform rule. So my thanks to you all. I think this is the kind of thing that in 5 years or 10 years, people will look back and say, thank goodness they did this, because the time is now, the technology is here to take this step. the Chicago North Shore is taking some leadership on this. And I think this is something that you can all be look at and say, we're doing this in a way that's really benefiting our community. So as far as the ordinance goes, I think it tracks very well what we discussed on April 11th. And I have also looked at the proposal from the Park District. I appreciate their willingness to evolve their machinery to electric, and that they have special issues in running the Park District. But I would have these observations about it. I think there's really two components to their concerns, and I see that, you know, I don't want to speak for them, but one is the golf course, which it sounds like that has special concerns, particularly with Kemper taking over the maintenance, and there are special demands for the golf course, and so I think that's the kind of thing where if there are these concerns, especially with the new construction, the new turf that's going in, I think you could, in the spirit of a compromise here, defer the exemption and revisit, you know, keep the exemption for the golf courses and revisit it in a year. I mean, I think that would be a reasonable compromise to allow the Park District to make the transition, buy the additional electric equipment, and also see how the turf comes in, and work with Kemper on how they would do this. So that would, I think, as I read it, that is the largest concern for the Park District. The other part is everything else, the beaches, the parks, and as to that, I think there's a good case still that when we talked about not exempting public bodies, this was about not asking our residents and the landscapers to do something we're unwilling to do ourselves as a public body. It's about, you know, leading by example. And the village itself is already doing this. My understanding that your contractors are using electrics right now, even though you don't have to technically by law. So, and I think the need in the summer months really is not that great for the gas-powered blowers. We've seen the technology emerge where if we're asking landscapers to use electrics during the 4 months now and eventually the 9 months, I think this is a situation where the beaches, the parks, the schools, they're not that much different. I mean, the heavy leaf volume in Winnetka, we know, occurs beginning early October and maybe goes into November. So that's the case in our study. We were advised by an organization called the American Green Zone Alliance, called AGZA. They said if there's a case to be made for the gas blowers, it's for the months of October and November. And I think the regional group decided that we would listen to the landscapers' request to have a 1-month spring cleanup. And so that's why we're at a 9-month rather than a 10-month ban in our recommendation in this proposed ordinance. But as far as the Park District goes, putting aside the golf courses, which I think there is a good case to be made for keeping that exemption and revisiting it. As far as everything else goes, I think if you exempt them, I think it also has the potential of causing some confusion. If everybody else is on the 9-month cycle, then and then you see the Park District blowing leaves. I mean, I've seen this a number of times with the Park District in the summer. Their employees are blowing sidewalks where there's not that much. There's really no reason an electric couldn't have handled that. And so I think there's a very good case to, if we're going to exempt all the governmental agencies, and then we should not exempt one where the case for gas-powered blowers is really not that much different from what they do, what the village does to clean up their property or the school district or the like. So I think that would be a reasonable compromise, is to continue the exemption for the golf courses, revisit that in a year. And then as far as everything else go, keep all the governmental bodies on the 9-month cycle. That makes it consistent through the village. I think there's no really compelling reason to have a special exemption for the beaches and the like. So that's my observation, and again, thank you.
Thanks. And King, I want to thank you for, I remember when the group first coalesced, before they even formed, and you were on that first Zoom call back during COVID, so I know you've been on this thing for years now, and I know you do it out of passion, and I know you do it out of your sense of service for the community. I was lucky enough to watch you in action when we served on council together, but to come back into the fray and step up and do some really heavy lifting on behalf of the community is really appreciated by all of us, for sure.
Well, it's my pleasure, and again, thank you all. And I really do think this is the kind of thing that the time is right, and it's important for our village, and I was glad to be part of it. So thank you.
Thanks. All right, and I know the Park District wanted to address council as well, so John, come on up and tell us what you're thinking.
Thank you very much, President Rintz. First, King, great job. The working group that you led, huge kudos to you. So thank you for what you did. To Village Manager Bahan, to Chief of Police O'Connell, as well as Brian Keys, who's not here. We really appreciate the teamwork that you've provided. To the Village Council, thanks for the opportunity to address you. The Park District covers more than 200 acres of property that we take care of pretty much almost year-round. Some of those are village properties, and we share some common ground at the Village Green and what have you. D36 properties, and certainly all the Park District properties. It's a pretty broad swath of it's a big footprint, without question. We do look for those exemptions that have been referenced, the golf course and Skokie Playfields. Those are the only two. We also look for an additional month in the spring cleanup phase. It's not a straight line. So whether we're cleaning up the 26 parks that we have in some of the other properties, it does take quite a bit of time to get that done, and some of it is very much weather dependent. For the fall, we don't know when the leaves are going to fall. We don't know what's going to be wet and when it's going to be wet. So asking for September, October, and November with a recognition that we'll be limited in the use of the gas-powered leaf blowers in that period of time, only when we need to have them, in use in those 3 months. But again, not knowing when the leaves will fall and how much rain we're going to get in the fall, that's where we come at this with a 3-month request. But we, like you, want to take a leadership position. So to get to those electric powered leaf blowers in June, July, and August, we believe in that. We think that's the right thing to do, to look at some of the pocket parks that we have. It's the right way to get at the opportunity, which is now. So, and we'll continue to evolve to electric powered leaf blowers as often as we can, recognizing we do have some pretty big pieces of property that we have to manage. So appreciate your consideration for our request. Can't be more appreciative of the Village Council's partnership with us, and thank you for making time for our pitch.
Great.
Coach, do you have any more?
Good evening. Costa Catullis, Director of Parks and Maintenance. The one thing I want to make sure is understood in the larger operations with larger park sites, a lot of people think of gas pack blowers, they think of the backpack blowers. We have large turbine tractors and blowers for the golf course that help clear the fairways after the morning dew cuts, that we need those pieces of equipment to get those open with the tees, the greens that are cut. Keep those clean, keep them open, and keep them to the expectation that the deliverable of the third party who's coming out as a revenue facility is enjoying those. Same thing with our athletic turf fields. The exemption for the Skokie Playfield, once again, that's a revenue facility for us. Being mindful of that to be able to drive and deliver to the expectations. We've already reduced our footprint by putting in as much synthetic turf as we have, so that reduces our footprint on that as well. But being mindful of those efforts is something else to be considered. And then as Executive Director Peterson suggested, we are mindful of the opportunity, and we're not going to be abusing the privilege just because we say it's September is what we're requesting. September 1, we're not going to eliminate the backpacks or the electric power and go right to gas. It's as needed. We're very mindful of the intake and what we need to do to work collaboratively in this effort, but we also want to make sure we have the proper tools to do our jobs to our abilities to make sure we're lessening the volume of air or the noise pollution. If they can get done in half the time with twice the power, those are things to be considered as well. So we just want to be mindful that we can have the right tool in our toolbox to do the job the most efficient during those times of need. Not always, but during the times of need. Thank you.
Thanks. Stay there. Anybody have any questions for the gentleman from the Park District? Go ahead, Bob.
So John and Costa, just to clarify, and I just want to make sure I understand what King was saying, you were talking about the parks down by the beach and so on this, and the sidewalks and so on. You're asking for a full exemption for Skokie Playfield, Little Duke, and the golf course. All other parks around town, including down by the beach, would be, you're asking for a month or two of extra time. Am I understanding this right?
2 months of extra time for the park cleanups in the spring, so April and May. Because of our extensive park sites and the acreage that we have to cover, we're not able to hit all of our parks within the time of April. So that does carry into May and sometimes even June, which we're not requesting at this point, but give us the versatility of May to get things open, to get things, ready to go. I'm sure you've probably seen the cleanup for the farmer's market, getting that ready to go and other opportunities. And then the same, Trustee Dearborn, in the fall, once again, September, we're requesting to have the versatility to be able to use gas-pack blowers or gasoline-powered blowers at that time, but doesn't mean September 1 we're going to be going out of the gate. It would be as needed once the leaves start dropping. If we have a wet fall and they drop early, we just want to be able to respond to that.
And there's a 3-year phase-in for those properties for this?
Starting 2024, we're going to start investigating through our budget cycle and onboarding this equipment. We've already have a couple battery-powered blowers in stock that we use currently already for our small park sites and so forth. We keep one at Hubbard Woods, and we keep them in the backs of some of the trucks that do small cleanups. But as the technology advances to the point where it can keep up with the CFM flow from those gas-pack blowers, we're willing to change that out starting now. But once we get into 24 and we could budget for it accordingly, have the space to put the chargers in, the infrastructure to power those units up and charge those units, that's the lead-in time over the next 3 years as that develops.
But Costa, do you really need 3 years for that? I mean, can you commit to doing that? If we gave you those extra months for 2024, could you commit to, abiding by the 3-month period for 25 forward?
Our goal is to try to work towards that, but once again, it's the park cleanups in May, I would suggest probably not, because that's basically on the time that we have staff available to get to. I mean, that would be a park a day, and that doesn't even quite equate to the calculation. And the team that needed to do that, sometimes we're at a park site for 2 or 3 days, depending if we had a lot of leaf drop and we have like heavy sand or other issues. It takes time to clean up the parks to the level of expectation we want to get back to the community. So May, I would say probably not. September, more willing, but as technology advances, we're willing to use the electric, but until they are apples to apples comparison, I would suggest that that's something that's hard to do. But once again, it's not just the backpack blowers, as everybody is mindful over the hand blowers, it's the push blowers and the tractor-driven blowers that we use to clean off the Green Bay Trail, that we use to clean off the other sites. We use on our synthetic fields and so forth to make sure that we have those operations up and running.
Okay, so again, I'm sorry on this, but the 3-year phase-in, is that a phase-in to get to the 3-month period of time? Or are you asking for a permanent exemption for May and September?
We would be looking for a permanent exemption for May and September.
That has nothing to do with the phase-in?
Correct.
Okay.
And then
Others, go ahead.
to follow up on that, so as far as for the riding, the combustion engine riding mowers or whatever they are, those were permanent. There's nothing to really change. You're not planning to change those out like for the turf fields, and that's kind of the way it is. So that's a permanent, you want
Currently, the
exemptions.
technology is not advanced enough
Right.
to cut, yeah.
Okay.
One aspect, we have an electric Zamboni that we transitioned to, and we've had that in place now for over 6 years. So we're always trying to be mindful of our impact to the community and to our environment, but there's certain times where the technology just isn't quite caught up yet. And this is one of the times that we're trying to work through that.
You also made a mention about using the higher powered gas cuts it in half. Is that a scientific, is that a guesstimate? Is that your time in half from actually cleaning it up?
Based on the current equipment that we have, I'm going to use an estimate, if you will. We haven't done data trials where we've tested it as far as apples to apples comparison,
Sure.
but based on the output of the blowers that we have currently versus the gas blowers that we have currently, I would suggest that it's probably to that rate. Now, if we invest in larger backpack blowers that are electric that have more flow, I can't make that argument because I don't know that technology yet.
Yeah.
I need time to look into that, see what the investment is, go in front of my board for the budget, and then hopefully get approved to invest into this next phase of work.
Okay, thank you.
Others? Go ahead, Tina.
So I think the backpack blowers were concerned because the nature of the engine and the particular, in addition to the noise, right, it was the particular,
Two-strokes.
two-stroke engine. I'm assuming that those larger pieces of equipment that work on the golf course and the field are not the two-stroke engine and probably have less of an issue with the carcinogens that come off of that.
Yeah, so those are based on four-stroke or diesel engines.
Yeah.
The diesel engines do not rev to the near capacity that the two-strokes do. They rev to between, I would estimate, between 7,000 to 9,000 RPMs. The diesel engines are running at maybe 2,800 to 3,000 RPMs and max idle when you're running the PTO. So I used to be the mechanic for the park district, so I maintained all this equipment, so I'm well informed.
It's
So-
good information to have. Okay, so one question I have is, I mean, this is not a new issue, right? I mean, this is a topic, it's a topic that's been gaining speed across the country and regionally. And it looks like, it doesn't look like there's other kind of extensions to the time period from other park districts with some of our other neighbors. And it, even looking in California where they do have leaves that come down every day, I don't see in at least the information compiled that there was any special exemptions or extensions. So I guess, has there been discussions, all of this is leading up to the question is, has there been discussions within the park districts in Illinois about this? Are you aware of other districts asking for relief from the proposals of the regional, or is it just that this is an equipment purchasing issue and time to have to budget for that and to get new equipment into the system?
So the couple questions. So the first one, as it relates to other agencies, Illinois park districts and so forth, as I believe I heard from Chief O'Connell, the current ordinances that are passed in our neighboring communities, I think all but one, there was a lead-in where all the park districts, including golf courses, were exempt. So comparable, I know we're actually a little bit ahead of that curve because we're saying that we'll abide by a 7-month versus no exemption. So we're working towards that goal, and we want to work with the village on this. As it relates to facts and findings and technology, I'm not going to lie to this council. I haven't given this the time that it really deserves. I was read into this fairly recently in bringing up on the speed onto this. Had the opportunity to watch the study session from the 11th, the information from that. I've known technology was advancing. When I've looked into this before, about 2 years ago, the technology wasn't nearly where it was today, but I wasn't sure quite on the timeline of this. So work is going on in the park district's realm to better understand that lead-in, and that's why there's currently a 3-year. If we could reduce that and shorten that, which we expect to, that's great. But I can't say tonight that that's something I can honor. I know our trustee Dearborn was looking for some information towards that, but at this point in time, I don't have the information to speak on that to say we could do that.
I think our interest is to advance beyond what some of the neighboring communities are affording for a full exemption for golf courses and park districts. We want to take a step forward. Certainly respectful of the Skokie play fields and the golf course. How do we use electric leaf blowers as much as possible? So we're going to budget for those blowers. I don't think we have
We have 3 handhelds. So we're gonna keep moving forward and try and use the electric leaf blowers from June, July, and August, minimize the gas leaf blowers in September, and really focus on October and November, again, based on when the leaves fall and how much rain we get. So we're excited to actually be ahead of some of the park districts around this. Well, if you do what we were saying and come back in a year, they'll have a fall and a spring. We talked about potentially revisiting this in a year.
With the golf course, with Kemper.
Golf course.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we'll have the history and they will know.
But the
Yeah, well,
three-year phase-in
remember
would
we
still
have-
apply to everything else though, right?
Yeah, remember, the golf course isn't really even gonna be open until,
Yeah, good point.
Late
Yeah.
24, late 24.
yeah, so I mean, late 24, right? Right, yeah, that's right. I got a whole more year of the golf course all to myself, isn't that great?
I will suggest that even though it's growing in, we still have to keep the leaves off the greens, we have to keep that pristine, we have to keep that in check, so we have a successful grow-in. So just because we're closed doesn't mean that these tools will not be used. Once we start planting and grass starts growing, we're cutting this fall. It's not like we hit the pause button, we come back in 9 months, 12 months, and we just hit pause. We're gonna be working that course constantly. And I would also suggest, in a year's time, I believe we're still gonna be at the same place with the golf course. The operation of the golf course is timing to get rounds of play going as fast as they are in the morning. It's gonna be hard pressed to try to do that without the tools. And it's not necessarily, once again, the smaller backpack blowers that are running 2-stroke at a higher RPM. It's the larger turbine blowers that are pulled behind the golf carts or running by tractors that clean off the entire fairways in 2 passes. That's the equipment that also, because of the internal combustion engine, is part of this, or part of the ordinance and is folded in, not just the backpack blowers that everybody thinks about more commonly. So just a perk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask one other question?
Go ahead.
I remember, if you watched the presentation in April, I thought one of the most poignant points that King made was the impact on children of this equipment. And I think King mentioned your Dwyer Park, and the Park District guy was, the kids are right there, and it just running this thing. You maintain properties by the schools. That really shouldn't happen with the gas-powered blowers when kids are around. And I don't know if it's a training issue, even during the 3 months, that really shouldn't happen.
Don't disagree.
Yeah, I know.
That's a training
maybe
piece
it's a
that we work on
training
with our
type
staff,
thing.
and they try to hit the parks, especially the playgrounds, when there's nobody around.
Yeah.
Dwyer's, it's hard. As of 8:30, the kids are already starting to get there, especially
Right.
summertime. So we're very mindful of that, but we've also looked at not including sand or different elements, and that's something that the community really enjoys. So no, there is a training aspect to this as well. That needs to fold in, which is not part of the ordinance. That's part of our management of our staff. But that is something that will be
And
addressed along with
maybe the
this.
staff can be told to just back off.
Right.
If the kids are there and the leaves stay. I mean,
And I assure
life
you they
goes on.
have been, and that's a constant follow-up that
Yeah.
we're always working on.
Okay,
So,
good.
Well, and I'd just like to add, I think it's been really amazing how the private industry has adopted, and I think you'll find that the electric leaf blowers are actually doing really well. I mean, we've had pretty much, I don't remember how many citations we had, but private landscaping companies have really seemed to have quickly embraced this. And they seem to be running all day long on battery packs. I'm sure they're figuring out how to charge them. So it's been, I think it's been pretty transformational.
Which customers will let them plug in?
I let my, yeah.
And as long as they're not running a generator out in the street while they're doing it, I guess it's okay. Any other questions? I have an idea. With respect to the May and September, the one thing that I heard Chief mention that other communities have done is they've given the village manager the authority to extend. And,
Depending upon weather conditions. or
yeah,
things like that,
I mean,
yes.
and so really, John and Costa, I mean, they would just be a phone call to Rob saying, hey, we need to be over at Elm Park and we need to use the gas blowers, just as simple as that. I think that might be a way to navigate those two shoulder months, so that at least we know there's some oversight. And anytime those are being used in those 2 months, we'll know about it and we'll know what the reason for it was. So that, not that I don't think you can supervise everybody, but Costa, you know as well as Rob knows that when people are out there in the world doing their job, sometimes they forget what you told them 15 minutes ago. So this would at least give us an opportunity to know what conditions are driving the request. And, you know, certainly if it's reasonable, I think Rob would go ahead and give them the thumbs up. So, and it sounds like other communities are doing that too, where they're leaving more than just the emergency piece, but also just a discretionary piece, given the fact that weather's different one year from another. And we can't really say. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, another aspect of the leaf season and what we deal with operationally is the timing of the drop. Sometimes it's later in the year, and then we end up doing leaf collection into December when we should be done shortly after Thanksgiving. So there is some variability with the season, and we can adapt to that.
Does that work for everybody?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
I like that idea, because then we'd have enough information to also know if it's too restrictive or not, right?
Yeah, I think we have to be reasonable in all this, but yeah, but lead down the path quickly as we can.
This is the time of the evening where we miss Andy, because he'd be sitting there right now writing up all of the modifications to the ordinance, so he wouldn't have to think of it. So now I have to ask my village attorney to help.
That's what he's written on retainer for.
Well, I have one,
Sorry.
I have one other question.
I don't want to get in the middle of this lawyer stuff, okay?
I have one other question.
Sure, go ahead.
Obviously, I think we're focusing, and we should be, on encouraging people to do the right thing versus penalizing them for not. However, I don't know how I missed this the first time, but I went through the fines. We have the lowest fine I think of any surrounding community, $100. And I don't know if fines in this case make a difference, and if that's the right number for us, or if that is something we should make higher to really.
I think it's already shaped behavior. I mean, if you're looking at the compliance that Tina talked about, I think,
That was intentional. I think we didn't
Yeah.
want, I mean, we had a long discussion
Oh, to
about
not
the
have
fine.
it be higher.
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and I think they all kind of voluntarily went through it and are doing it. As far as, I
Okay.
mean,
Well, as
you
I
would
said,
know.
I'd rather encourage the positive than
And I think
penalize
that's-
the
I
I
think-
negative.
think that was my memory.
Yeah.
Did we have
So
that
don't-
discussion
Did
about
we,
that?
in the study
Yeah.
session? Okay, I blanked out on
Yeah,
that.
so don't quote me on the exact number, I'm trying to go off of memory, but we had a dramatic decrease in violations in 2022 and a compliance increase greatly. So you'll
So
begin to,
even with our lower fine
Yes.
compared to other communities?
yes.
Okay.
And you'll begin to see those numbers in the weekly from me.
Okay.
And if I could add, I think it was largely because the police did a very good job of not just providing a citation, but also trying to educate, right? I mean, it was more of the carrot than the stick approach. I think we did that intentionally, as I remember
There was
it.
the pledge.
The pledge, that's right, thank you.
Okay.
And that had some effectiveness, not as much as we would have liked, but at least it was a start, and I think it raised consciousness a lot, and I think that's an important part of this whole thing, is just to get people on board with it. It's been quiet so far. I mean, I've heard a couple leaf blowers wailing, but not as many as years gone by, so something here is working.
Well, we're increasing our efforts as well by opportunities with our community service officers. So hopefully that, including the weekends, so we're hoping that brings more education to the table with companies.
Awesome. Any other thoughts? So we're talking about two things: the play fields and the golf course exemption, with a commitment that you guys will come back in a year and we'll have another discussion on it, probably just a snippet of a study session where we can kind of get an update on where you guys are at, right? Where Kemper's at, and then, you know, if there's any modifications that need to be made at that time, we'll make them. I mean, we certainly want to get this codified
Yeah.
at the most stringent level over the next 3 years, but at least we've got the ramp-up period. And,
So Chris, the golf course, I have a lot of sympathy for the idea of getting this golf course into pristine condition as soon as possible. I don't understand all the agronomics or whatever the word is of doing that. Turf management, all this type of thing, but we're saying that the golf course is not even gonna be playable until the end of '24, early '25, is that right?
Right, end
So-
of 24.
But they still have to, they're still
But the
working.
nine-
Oh, no, I know
The
they
nine
still have
hole
to.
will be open
What
earlier.
I'm saying is, I mean, maybe we give them a little longer than, I mean, they can come back in a year, fine, but
Mm-hmm.
we could give them a longer period of time. I assume that Glencoe and Wilmette did not put timeframes on their exemptions for the golf course. They just exempted the golf.
Yeah.
I mean, a golf course, and we talked about it during the meeting, that the golf course, you know, it's not as intensely populated when they're doing it and so on and so forth. So it's not like it's going between our two houses and rattling us while we're on
Yeah.
a Zoom call or something like
Right.
that. So I don't know. I mean, I think the golf course, I think most communities seem to exempt that. And
I think they do, and those machines that they use that are at the lower RPMs or lower noise, those are very unique machines. I don't
And
know
they're
how you-
four-stroke.
Yeah, I don't know how you get around that, so I'm not worried about those, to be honest with you, as much.
I mean, I don't know about the play field, but maybe the same applies for the play field.
So where are we at on that then?
I would propose, since other communities kind of did this and they thought about this, we thought about it too, we talked about this at length. At the site, and I think even Andy, I may be wrong, I have to look at the tape again, but I think
Took
he
him a
even
while,
said,
but I
hey,
think he got there.
if they want to come back, when we can talk about it and so on. I think there was recognition that this would be an issue.
Yep.
And so, personally, I'd exempt the golf course and the play fields, but
And I would think one of the world's premier golf course operators would want to be on the cutting edge of any technologies
yeah.
that they certainly should be thinking about it if they're not. I mean, this is, they're the gold standard for golf course management, and you would think that they would be trying to move along those paths anyway, just because it's good business. So,
Chris, they have a contract through '27. You could even line it up with that. You could exempt them through '27 and then come back for a review, because that'll give 2 years or 3 years, I guess, 25, 26, 27, of course management. They can, I guess, Rob, that gets on our radar, whoever is the council at the time. You just line it up,
I think that's okay.
right?
I think that'll work just fine, so if you guys are fine with it, I'm fine with it. I'll watch it at home on TV, how's that? Not. Okay, so I feel it's going back and forth on this. So the golf course gets the exemption.
Which is consistent with others,
Say again?
which is consistent with other communities around
Okay.
us.
But I do it
With
through,
the-
I do it through 12/31.
With the sunset through 27.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And the Skokie.
And the play fields did
And the
it.
play
Yeah.
fields.
Because, you can't have people slipping on leaves, I guess.
yeah.
Right now, you just have a brush that goes out there and kind of churns everything up, right, Costa? I mean, there isn't a,
Sorry, Chris, for which part of the management? For the synthetic
the
fields or
turf,
for the natural?
the
or
synthetic.
The synthetic, yeah. We use a vacuum system with a rubber comb that basically pulls all the fines, decompacts, and then lays down the crumb rubber back in and basically grades it out. So,
Right,
yeah.
so you're just talking the ball fields in the back there.
Correct. So fields 3, 4, and 5 are baseball fields, are pony fields, and then over that we have overlaid a football field that we use in the fall and
Ah.
the spring, and as well as lacrosse fields for practice and pickup games. So that operation there, which is paired by maybe a dozen residents to the north, off of Sunset there, and then we border the Forest Way, and we border Willow, and we border, the back door of our tennis facility, our ice facility. So we're pretty well secluded from the community as well. Just holes 2, 3, back of 4, and 13 have exposure, and there's probably maybe 20 residents that border the golf course, so it's very low impact.
Great.
Well, and then you maintain New Trier's Field too?
Not New Trier's. Little Duke is our field between Duke Childs and the ice arena. That is one of our fields. That is a natural turf field, not synthetic. So that will be blown to the point where we will use those larger implementations during the heavy growth cycles after we fertilize, when the grass really kicks in, and we have a machine called the Smithco Sweeper that we pick up as much clippings as we can, but there's still clumps that we disperse with the larger blowers. We're not out there daily, it's only as needed for those heavy mow cycles.
So who does New Trier's fields?
Nutrier does Nutrier Fields.
We haven't heard from them, have we?
Well, they haven't even decided what they're putting down there yet,
Okay.
so
Okay,
it could be grass, it could be turf,
got it.
so.
We did make contact with them, and at the time, they didn't see any issue with, what was being proposed.
Got it. Doing push mowers.
Biting my tongue on that one. Okay, so let's just summarize this. 2027 on the golf course and Skokie. Extension by village manager for May and September. Help me out here.
That takes care of
I
the
think
seven.
that's it.
I think that's it.
Right.
It's
That's
two
it.
things, yeah.
So May and September are by request.
Are by
Special
request,
meeting,
right.
special meeting.
So, we good with that?
Good with that.
Okay, so the village attorney has informed me that we can introduce the ordinance tonight, and then he'll come back. Yeah, go ahead, King.
I think I understand this. The extension is the 27 just for the golf courses and the play fields, but as to the beaches, the other parks, that would be effective January 1st with everything else with the, is that correct? Yeah, and then we have the discretion for the months of May and September.
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
That sound like a good compromise, King?
It does.
Okay. Kind of a seat of the pants compromise, but I think it's how you get things done.
I think
so.
that it is a very thoughtful compromise, and I think it recognizes the unique concerns of the Park District. At the same time, when they are at the golf course, it's a different. It's been pointed out. Those are four-stroke engines. It's a different technology. You don't have the same concerns, and you don't have the proximity to residents, or
Right.
like the Dwyer Park example. That's where I think you really want to be protecting Winnetka residents. I've heard, I just even my wife talked about being down at Lloyd Beach and in the summer and the leaf blowers are going. It's like those are the kinds of things where I think our residents will really benefit from the June through August, and then with this September. Hopefully. Most of September and May, but with exceptions as needed.
Sounds good. We all good with that?
Good.
All right, so I need a motion to introduce
Motion to introduce, subject to the changes we discussed
Subject-
being made for second reading.
what Peter said. Let me read the ordinance number so I get all that right too. Okay, I'm looking for a motion to introduce ordinance number MC06 2023, subject to the modifications to be made between now and introduction or adoption.
So moved.
Second.
Voice vote, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion carries. Thanks, everybody. Good conversation. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah.
I am so sorry. I'm not used to having people in the room, so.
Roll back the tape.
Well, roll back the tape.
Roll back, yep.
Hi, I'm Luis Hernandez at 400 Sheridan Road. This is my daughter Luisa.
Oh, stop right there.
Yep.
Louisa, you are the person that started this whole thing in motion. I'm like, you've grown so much since the last time you were here, but thank you so much because you raised the consciousness of this entire village council and really got us thinking about it. And, my phone call to King, when the leaf blower thing came up, I actually directed him to the village council taping of your speech, and it really inspired all of us to move forward and start taking action. So thank you so much. Now you can go ahead and talk.
Well, we appreciate that, and I realize that the motion that carried, and maybe has to carry again, was about expanding, effectively removing 1 month of actual usability of leaf blowers from the current statute. But we think that it's a little disheartening to hear you talk about revisiting, tweaking this particular statute in 3 years when an absolute ban has to still be on the table. And I know it can't be up, it's not written, it's not being proposed, But we want to say a few words about that. And
Sure.
again, in case, I know it's been over 3 years since Louisa spoke before, this is especially important to us. Louisa's, one of her 4 sisters, is actually, has severe hearing loss. And during leaf blower season, we cannot converse with her in our house, like literally in our house, because of the background noise created. And we, ways happen where we live on Sheridan Road happens to be the vortex of everyone that's obsessed with leaf blowers. So a few words, we don't want to, belabor the point, but Louisa would like to go first.
Sure.
Okay. Gas-powered leaf blowers are ruining our environment. They emit carbon monoxide, nitrous oxides, and hydrocarbons into our environment in extremely large quantities. The average person will mow their lawn once a week. A leaf blower, most of which are gas-powered, is needed to blow any grass clippings. Blow away any grass clippings. This means the average person will use a gas-powered leaf blower every week for around 30 minutes. As I mentioned 3 years ago, this is the equivalent of driving a large Ford truck 3,900 miles every single week. And some people in Winnetka will use their leaf blowers more than just once a week. Yes, there may be a temporary ban during the summer months, although the police department does a fantastic job at preventing people from using their gas-powered leaf blowers during this ban, there is still a number of people who will ignore this ban and use their leaf blowers year-round. I hope that even though we failed to lead 3 years ago, we can still catch up and install a ban, such as those in Evanston and Oak Park. Yes, it may be more difficult to switch from gas to electric, but it isn't impossible. We are running out of time to make these changes, and these are the measures we need to take to help save our environment. Thank you for your time.
I'd just like to add 2 points. The first is, I know one of the common arguments, I'm a financial person by nature, I have a financial background, so the financial arguments against an all-out ban are compelling to me. But I think that's largely been refuted through experience and study in that we've had a temporary ban through part of the year, and we don't have a completely different set of landscapers come in, and the landscapers don't go out of business, and yet, at least my neighbors still insist on having their, their lawns blown. So I think it's a little bit of a red herring to say that we're going to drive all these small businesses out of business if we force this change. The second thing is about enforcement, and while I do appreciate it, you all have a few calls from me, and I've been on both sides of this. When I first moved to 400 Sheridan, I stopped doing my own yard. So it's the first time I used a landscaper. So I was completely oblivious to the leaf blower regulations. And in the summertime, one of the community service officers showed up at my door with a warning and said, hey, your landscaper's using this. I was mortified that I had broken a nuisance law, I had broken an environmental protection law, and I immediately spoke to, in fact, I subsidized my landscaper buying, electric because, I felt that passionately about it. But unfortunately, it's not that way in my experience, with other people. I've had 2 very aggressive encounters with my neighbors after I've pleaded with their landscapers on multiple occasions to abide by the rules. I resorted to calling the police, and boy, now the neighbor's interested, and they want to come to my doorstep and get in my face, and luckily I was a pretty restrained fellow that day. That could have ended badly for everybody. And I know the police can't, enforce this drive around looking for leaf blowers, but it's hard to understand if you're a landscaper, that we were actually committed to this. And it's important to us when you're out there breaking law openly and a police officer drives by and doesn't say a word. So relying on neighbors reporting on this is like asking us to monitor speeding on Sheridan Road. So if there's some way, I don't want you going around writing citations all the time, but if we could deliver the message this is serious, and we really want this to be enforced, I think that'll go a long way to really improving the results that we've had, and maybe, getting to a point where we don't feel like a right-out ban or all-out ban is absolutely necessary right now. So, thank you.
Thanks. And just so you know, over the past few years, because of your statements to this council, we amped up our enforcement. And when I saw the numbers of the amount of citations that we've written, as opposed to the amount of citations that Evanston wrote before they did theirs, or Kenilworth, or Wilmette, we were far and away, head and shoulders in citations above all the other communities in the area. I mean, we really took an aggressive stance. And one of education, you heard somebody mention the pledge. you know, as an initial step, we brought all of the larger landscape, anybody would get our hands on, actually, and brought them in and explained to them these issues, got them to sign a pledge that they would start moving their technologies over to electric. So there's been a lot going on, but we still do need the push. And thank goodness for people like you who keep pushing on it, because it's something that's important, it's something that needs to change.
And we appreciate it, and we appreciate the progress being made. I think this is important progress to be made, but I think it's not the final step.
Nope.
We need to kind of keep our eye on the ball, which is to have a community where the town song is not leaf blowers. Okay, thank you.
I couldn't agree with you more. And again, I'm sorry about the public comment thing. I totally apologize. That was boneheaded, wasn't it? Where was I?
Well, on that point, can we include kind of what the new parameters are as part of public education? Because I think that one of the reasons why we've seen a large uptake is like people like me going to my landscaper and saying, hey, you know, where's the electric on the truck, right? I think that has helped a lot in getting that out again. I think it was just recently.
There should never be an instance where a neighbor comes and confronts another neighbor because he's breaking,
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, so.
I think that happens on
It's
other
not
issues.
The fact that we have uniformity among the whole North Shore almost now, it sounds like.
Yeah.
We're all aligned. I think that goes a long way to making this happen.
So, prior to this ordinance discussion with the pledge, we tried to obtain the names and addresses and contact information for as many landscapers as we could find, and we pre-noticed what we were planning to do. As Chief O'Connell has noted in this draft ordinance, we will be licensing landscapers, and as part of the licensing requirement, we'll be adding all the conditions that the license would be operating under.
Yep.
And that the license would be the basis to, hey, if you're violating the ordinance, you could lose your license.
That
So
changes the
it's
game.
another enforcement tool, but it also adds to their database as to how to communicate.
That's good.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, for that good conversation. I feel like I'm missing something. Item C, which is resolution number R57-2023, waiving bidding and approving the purchase of police body-worn cameras, tasers, and software from Axon Enterprises. To comply with the forthcoming mandates of the SAFE-T Act, Council will consider approving the purchase of body cameras, tasers, and software for the police department. And Chief Brian O'Connell is here again to review this one with us.
Thank you, Council. So before I begin with this one, I'd like to acknowledge two people in the room. Commander James O'Neill has done a lot of legwork on this, so I want to recognize him, as well as Administrative Services Manager Carrie Kaup for the information that you're going to hear here tonight is mainly from their work and their efforts, so I want to recognize them. So thank you. The Law Enforcement Officer Worn Body Camera Act requires all municipalities and counties in the state to implement body cameras. Larger municipalities and counties have required implementation in the years 2022, 2023, and 2024. Since the population of the village of Winnetka is under 50,000 people, we are required to implement body-worn cameras by January 1, 2025. Staff began evaluating body camera vendor options in 2022. Although there are multiple body-worn camera vendors, staff determined that there is only one body camera vendor, Axon, that will meet our needs and fulfill our capability requirements with several outside entities. Appreciating supply chain concerns and also what we've all experienced with cost increases over the last couple of years and the proper implementation of the equipment, Axon body-worn cameras were quoted and budgeted for in the 2023 through the 2027 budget, capital budget. While Axon is not a sole source vendor of body cameras, they are a sole source vendor in body camera functionality related to our operations, and I'm going to begin to get into that now. Axon body-worn cameras are the sole source in the following functions directly related to our operations. They integrate with our tasers. They can be configured to alert an Axon camera system to turn on automatically when a taser is activated. It reduces the risk of human error if an officer forgets to activate the camera. part of, off script here a little bit, as part of the act, is that an officer can be held accountable criminally, as it reads, for not activating their body camera. Integration with our other Axon body-worn cameras, even outside of our agency. So being within 100 feet of an activated Axon body-worn camera, this will trigger our officer's body camera to turn on. It's helpful for mutual aid responses. So for example, officers may not know what they're going to. They may be called to assist an outside agency, for example, Glencoe, not knowing what the enforcement counter is, if it qualifies. But if that officer has triggered their body camera, currently wearing Axon, our body cameras will engage automatically. Neighboring agencies already using the Axon body cameras are Wilmette, Glencoe, Glenview, Highland Park, and NORTAF partner agencies for our major crime investigations. Integration with Axon Fleet Squad cameras. If a neighboring agency uses our Axon Fleet, which is the in-squad video camera system, our Axon body cameras will turn on within 30 feet of that squad car with activated emergency lights going. Neighboring agencies already using the Fleet system through Axon: Wilmette, Glencoe, Glenview, Highland Park, and NORTAF agencies. So that immediately addresses our operations on the street. What I'd like to transition to now is the internal operations within the police department, specific to the time, the work it will take, and the cost if this is not considered from Axon. So Axon interfaces with our CAD system, our computer-aided dispatch, for auto tagging. What does that mean? We have a CAD system that we store all of our reports, our incidents on. Using the Axon body-worn camera will automatically connect that incident and assign that case number to that video. It will allow the officer to not have to come into the station, find the video on another body camera system, and manually tag it associated with our CAD system. So as you can appreciate, it would reduce the amount of time in preparing video and get and allow our officers to be back on the street. Agencies in Dispatch Consortium already using this feature. You see where I'm going? Wilmette, Glencoe, Glenview, Highland Park, and Niles. If using any other body-worn camera system, we would need to pilot and build the interface ourselves. Meaning we would have to build the system through our Tyler CAD software on our side, as well as build the platform on the body-worn vendor side. We took estimates of what that would cost. That ranges anywhere from $12,000 to $25,000 per each side of the platform. So anywhere between $24,000 and $50,000 to build that platform to auto tag or to associate with our incidents. Okay? Digital evidence storage through evidence.com. We use evidence.com already for our TASER storage system. Anytime an officer activates a TASER, whether it's to test it before their shift, training, and a use, that record is saved in the cloud on evidence.com. Axon uses evidence.com, so it would be a seamless transition for our officers that already use it. Also, which is I hope can be appreciated in Cook County, is the state's attorney's office uses Axon technology. So what does that mean? We could seamlessly download our own video from evidence.com, literally send the state's attorney's office a link of our videos from the officer's body-worn camera. They could click on the link and they have our video. Any other vendor, we would have to transition that into a compatible viewing option for the state's attorney's office to be able to view a body camera footage from any other vendor. Functionality. It allows for a 120-second buffering period to record footage prior to pressing record. So that means that even if the officer doesn't press the button and something he or she encounters, it backtracks 2 minutes at a high resolution. We do have information that it actually would record for 16 hours at a very low resolution. So if the officer, something happened an hour prior and that was never recorded, we would have that at a lower resolution. Has a 12-hour battery life, and our officers are currently on 12-hour shifts. And it also has a Find My Camera feature if the camera is ever lost. Finally, Axon is the sole source vendor for our tasers, which is also due for replacement this year. Axon body cameras are programmed with the taser to automatically engage when the taser is activated. Other body camera systems will not do this. The quote provided by Axon is a bundle package that includes the purchase of both body cameras and tasers at a discounted cost. This was something, if you remember last year, this was what retired Chief Hornstein referenced as a bundle package. For the above listed reasons, staff recommends waiving competitive bidding for the purchase of the body cameras and moving forward with the purchase of Axon body camera systems and tasers as outlined in the provided quote. The purchase price is within the amount budgeted in the capital plan. That budget is $65,000 per year over the next 5 years, and we are spending $64,274.52 each year for the next 5 years. And if I could just hit lightly on a few agencies that have them and do not. Northfield currently has a Motorola system in their squad cars, so they are reviewing that as a Motorola vendor, but they have not committed yet. Kenilworth is researching both Axon and Motorola currently, have not made a decision. Lincolnwood, Axon. Glencoe, Axon. Skokie, Axon. Park Ridge, Axon. Evanston, Axon. Wilmette, Axon. Glenview, Axon. And Highland Park, Axon. And with that, I would be glad to take any questions that you may have.
Fire away. Questions for Brian?
What's Northbrook, do you know? I was looking at what big communities that are, I know Wilmette is in Evanston, which is great.
Yeah, I'm sorry. If you give me a second, maybe I could find it.
Whenever you get that through, I'm just curious. It's not that material. I'm just curious. It's the only big one you've left out. The camera, I completely understand why you want it. I mean, from the way it integrates into your current systems. Is there a technology? Is there any? What would Motorola say if they're trying to sell you from a technology standpoint? Size of camera? Is it smaller? Are they all the same size?
So they're all very, they're all comparable in size. Okay. Functionality is very, very similar. The bigger takeaways that I'd like to stress is the platform build through CAD. We would have to do that.
Got that.
And the specific programming that Motorola would require for that camera to be activated versus the Axon camera.
So from a technology standpoint, they're fairly at parity, but this integrates far better than what you currently could go with.
From what we have researched, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Others?
And Northbrook is going to Axon.
Sounds like Axon's got one hell of a business model.
Well, and I'm sitting here going,
I'm gonna go buy Axon stock right now.
why didn't the Cook County negotiate a better, get everybody, why didn't the Cook County's attorney, or state's attorney's office, like encourage or get some sort of intergovernmental agreement to get a better purchasing, to get everybody on the same platform?
That's a wormhole we don't want to go down.
I understand, but it makes sense, that integration, to me.
Very compelling.
Good report.
Yeah, thank you.
I did have a question about operationally. Will the body cameras only automatically activate if you activate the taser, or is it just, or is there also, I'm assuming there's some instances where you aren't activating the taser, right?
Yes, great question. So the primary and main activation is the responsibility of the officer, which is clearly laid out in the statute. But any, I believe it's defined as any law enforcement encounter is going to be requiring of the activation of the body worn camera. So if we meet for coffee, no. If I'm called to Starbucks or any other location because of an incident, the officer needs to turn their body camera on, and that is done manually by a click of the button in the square of their chest.
Others?
Pretty thorough.
Okay, I will not miss it this time. Is there any public comment on this issue? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. Are there any other conversations required here? Okay. All right, then I'll go ahead and ask for a motion to adopt resolution number R57, 2023.
So moved. Second.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Dearborn.
Yes.
Trustee Apatow.
Yes.
Trustee Handler.
Yes.
Trustee Alvinson.
Yes.
Trustee Dahlman.
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, old business, there is none. New business, there is none. And appointments, I do have one this evening. I'd like to appoint Brendan Andrew to a full term on the Environmental and Forestry Commission. That term would expire on June 6th, 2026. I hope you all had a chance to review his qualifications. Amazing addition to the EFC, and somebody who's going to help us do a lot of thinking in the future. So, may I have a motion to appoint Brendan Andrew to the Environmental and Forestry Commission?
So moved.
Second.
Voice vote, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes, thank you. Closed session, there is none tonight, and item 13 is adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Voice vote, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We stand adjourned, thank you.
Thank you.